Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, but instead of your bed, you're lying in a narrow ditch carved into the earth somewhere in northern France. The year is 1916. The ground beneath you is waterlogged mud that has swallowed men whole. The smell hits you first, and it's something your brain genuinely cannot prepare for. Rotting flesh, human waste, wet soil, and gunpowder fuse together into something almost physical. And your day hasn't even started yet. Most people think they could handle it. Most people are catastrophically wrong. Today, we're going to walk through a single day in the World War I trenches, hour by hour. And by the end of it, you'll understand exactly why historians describe the Western Front as one of the most psychologically and physically devastating environments ever created by human conflict. Stick around, because the details get genuinely shocking. Let's start before sunrise. Every single morning in the trenches began with what soldiers called stand to, short for stand to arms. Every man was required to stand at the fire step with his rifle ready before dawn broke. Why? Because dawn was the most likely time for an enemy attack. You stood there, exhausted, cold, potentially soaked through your uniform, peering into darkness over the parapet for anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour. Officers would walk the line inspecting rifles. If your weapon had mud in it, you faced serious consequences. Sleep deprivation was already setting in after just one night. Studies suggest most trench soldiers got between 3 and 4 hours of broken sleep. You're already running on fumes. Now let's talk about the mud, not regular mud. The mud of Flanders and the Somme was a specific kind of nightmare. The constant artillery bombardment destroyed the natural drainage of the landscape entirely. The water table rose. Men and horses and equipment literally disappeared beneath the surface. Soldiers developed a condition called trench foot, where prolonged exposure to cold, wet conditions caused the flesh of the feet to swell, blister, turn black, and in severe cases require amputation. Your daily responsibility was to dry your feet, rub whale oil into them, and change your socks if you had clean ones. Many soldiers did not have clean ones. Here's where your modern body would start failing you specifically. The average person today has an immune system that has never encountered the bacterial density present in World War I trenches. Latrines were simple holes in the ground, often just a few feet from sleeping and eating areas. The flies that bred in them transferred bacteria constantly. Dysentery and typhoid moved through units at frightening speeds. You wouldn't need to get shot to be completely incapacitated within your first 24 hours. Then there are the rats. Brown rats, specifically, sometimes described as growing to the size of cats from feeding on the bodies in no man's land. They were everywhere, in your food, running across your face while you slept. Soldiers became numb to them eventually, but you wouldn't be numb yet. You'd be horrified. And horror drains energy you cannot afford to lose. Midday in the trenches was counterintuitively the least dangerous time, which doesn't mean it was safe. It meant that both sides were maintaining a kind of informal ceasefire during daylight, because movement above the parapet meant death from snipers. A skilled sniper could put a bullet through a gap no wider than your fist at 300 meters. Soldiers learned to move in specific ways, to keep their heads down constantly, to never light a match at night because the flame could be seen and targeted instantly. The psychological weight of knowing that standing up straight at the wrong moment meant death created a permanent state of low-grade terror that researchers now recognize as a precursor to what we call post-traumatic stress disorder. The artillery was the real killer. Roughly 60% of all casualties on the Western Front were caused by artillery shells, not rifles or machine guns, as popular imagination suggests. The shells came without warning. A soldier could be alive and then simply not exist anymore. But worse than the physical damage was what prolonged bombardment did to the mind. Shell shock, dismissed at the time as cowardice, was a genuine neurological condition. Men lost the ability to speak, to walk, to control their own bodies. Some shook uncontrollably for years after the war ended. After 1 hour of sustained bombardment, your cognitive function would be measurably impaired. After 6 hours, some men simply stopped responding to any external stimulus at all. Food arrived cold if it arrived at all. Bully beef from a tin, hard biscuits, sometimes a piece of bread that had traveled through active fire zones. Hot food required fires, and fires at the front were dangerous. The caloric intake was often insufficient for men doing physical labor in cold conditions. You would be constantly hungry on top of everything else. And then came night, which meant patrols into no man's land. Officers needed intelligence about enemy positions, and that meant sending men out through the wire in complete darkness, crawling through ground that contained unexploded ordnance, barbed wire, shell craters filled with stagnant water, and the bodies of men who had not come back from previous patrols. Your hands and knees on the earth, every sound amplified by your terror, knowing that a single noise could cause a flare to go up and illuminate you completely. The soldiers who survived months and years in these conditions were not superhuman. They adapted through sheer repetitive exposure to horror until certain things stopped registering as abnormal. That process itself was a form of psychological damage. The men who came home from the Western Front were fundamentally changed people, and the ones who appeared fine on the outside were often carrying invisible wounds that surfaced decades later. You wouldn't last a single day, not because you're weak or cowardly, but because nothing in modern life has calibrated your body or your mind for this specific combination of physical suffering, constant mortal danger, and psychological erosion that these men endured every single day for years. The real question isn't whether you could survive it. The real question is how any of them did.